If you want to know how to reinforce your Boonedox installation, then this video is for you.
Welcome back! If you're new to the channel, we cover kayak modifications, spin, and fly fishing. So poke that subscribe button so you don't miss anything.
Well, I got this Jackson Coosa FD, and one of the things that Jackson put out is not to install the Boonedox wheels on one of their utility tracks. The utility tracks are not stressed and robust enough to deal with the weight of this heavy kayak flexing on the wheels. Now, I installed my Boonedox to the rear of my kayak because I'm going to load this on my truck with a bed extender. And so I'm going to tip it up and then pull it onto the bed extender. So the purpose of having it in the back, even though that'll make it a little bit harder to haul around from the front, is to give me that leverage point where I can just rotate up and then put it on. Well, what that does, of course, is it puts a lot of weight back here on these Boonedox instead of having it more centrally located around the center of gravity, the pivot point, where it would balance naturally. In addition, I've had some people tell me that in the summer, the HDPE on the top of these boats can really get hot, and that makes it a little more flexible. After doing some reading and getting some advice from a subscriber, I'm going to reinforce this installation by installing 1/4 inch HDPE on the bottom, on the inside, as well as a top plate. And what that'll do is it'll distribute the stress of these two bolts across a wider surface area, and by having the top plate on here, it's going to protect the HDPE around the critical point from heat. In other words, the top plate will heat up, but this HDPE here will be a little bit cool. Now this is a little bit easier for me because I can just reach right in here and deal with it on the bottom. So the first step is to make a template, and I'll cut out this piece of cardboard and use that feeling around inside here because there are some lumps and bumps where this utility track joins in with the flat part of the kayak. Once I make that template, I'll use that to cut out the appropriate piece of this HDPE. Well, I got my templates done here, and you can see one right here. And one of the key things I discovered is that with this curve right here in the edge of the kayak, you got to make sure that this is totally flat up against the top of the boat. You don't want it to be cocked because then you're not going to get the advantage of having this additional buffer up against the top of your kayak. And so here's how I figured that out. So I turned on the video on my phone, stuck it up underneath, and checked out that the HDPE was laying flat against the top, and I had to make some adjustments to get it just right. In addition, I made a simple top plate that I'm going to go ahead and slide right under here, and that'll give me some more robust bracing from the top as well as from the bottom. And I'm going to top it off with some stainless steel bolts. These are 5/16 18 thread. Those will fit perfectly into the stock plate that came with the Boonedox, but I'm going to reinforce it with some lock washers and a big nut just to make sure it's firmly seated and won't have the opportunity to come loose. So here's a quick tip. Install your Boonedox the way you normally would, and then remove the bolts. Take your template or your finished piece and stick that up under there, and then use a Sharpie to mark where those holes are going to be. It's much easier than trying to do this all at once. Then, when you're ready to do the top plate, only undo one side, because then you can lift it up just enough to slide the HDPE under there and then mark the holes again. All set. Got the top plates on, bottom on. I think this Boonedox is going to be just fine. Got plenty of clearance underneath. So what do you think? Am I overreacting to a potential threat, or is this just appropriate risk mitigation? What's your perspective? Have you ever had a Boonedox mess up your boat? After all I spent on this one, I need to keep it perfect. Throw your comments down below. Thanks.